We are right at the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Kimberly Wickert, and I am with the University of Kentucky Human Development Institute and Retain Kentucky. I am a Gen X white woman with glasses and blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail today and a gray sweater, and I have a blurred background. Um, Today, along with our partners at Employment First, we are excited to have Sarah Dixon talk about employer strategies for recruitment and retention. So thank you all for joining us as well. Want to let you know that the information contained in our presentation is intended for informational purposes only and does not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Employment First Council, University of Kentucky Human Development Institute, or its individual employees. And we make every attempt to provide accessible, accurate, and current information. So today, we are excited to have Sarah join us, and she's going to do an introduction of herself as well, but she is joining us from Unified Signs and Designs, and she's going to talk about strategies that she has used to recruit an inclusive workforce, ways that she's able to retain workers, and also we're going to be lucky enough to hear some success stories from her about those workers. So while Sarah goes ahead and pulls up her slide deck, I'm going to invite you to put any questions that you might have in the chat, and I'll be monitoring that as Sarah is presenting. And also, I know there are a few of you that put some questions when you registered, and I shared those with Sarah. So she's going to cover those, but if there's something, again, that you have a question about, put that in the chat. This is being recorded, and we are going to post that on the Retain Kentucky Media website. So you will get to see that as well. And while you're still working on that, Sarah, I just want to say I'm grateful to our partners at Employment First and Mary Reed Sheffer for introducing Sarah to me so that she was willing to present today. And oh, I see Mary Reed saying, yay, go Sarah. So thanks, Mary Reed. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Sarah.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I feel very privileged to have been asked to share with you guys just a little bit about my company and what we do to promote inclusivity in our environment. So just a little bit about me, which you're going to have to give me just a second because my screen is not sharing the way that I would like for it to. Sorry about that.
And I did put this in the chat as well, but we will be sending out certificates of attendance in the next few days to everybody who's joined today. So you can look forward to that as well. And we will include the slide deck too.
Okay, are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep,
perfect.
you got it.
Okay. So sorry about that. It was not transitioning for some reason.
No
so
worries.
just a little bit about myself. So my name is Sarah Dixon. I am the owner of Unified Sign and Design. I am also the board chair for Mattingly Edge, which is a local nonprofit that supports adults with disabilities and cultivates partnerships that help them thrive at work, at home, and in their relationships. I hold a BFA, an MFA, and most recently an MBA. And probably most importantly, I am the mother of two young children, one of which is my son who has a disability, which has really furthered my passion for advocacy and inclusivity. So a little bit about my company. Unified is a multidisciplinary design build studio in Louisville, Kentucky. We take customer projects really from concept all the way through completion. And we focus heavily on ADA compliant signage and inclusive and universal design. My team has an extensive knowledge of not just design, but code compliance, material specification, installation. But most importantly, they are all very passionate about creating accessible and beautiful spaces. So when we onboard a new project, we like to sit down as a team internally and just develop the scope where we look at all of the signage and graphic opportunities that are available through on the project through an inclusive lens, where it becomes a core value of the project and not just requirements of the ADA. So now that I've probably said ADA a couple times at this point, I'm just going to take a quick moment to talk about what the ADA is and how it relates to my company specifically. So the ADA stands for the Americans with Disability Act, which is, in a nutshell, just a civil rights law that prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life. It became law in 1990 and is divided into 5 titles or sections that relate back to different areas of public life. So what does it actually do, and what does it mean for people living with disabilities? So one, I'm sure this is the one that people are most familiar with, is it ensures equal employment opportunities. Title II requires equal access to public services and government programs, as well as requiring buildings and public transportation systems to be accessible to people with disabilities. So prior to 1990, you didn't see automatic door openers or wheelchair lifts on buses. So that is all covered under the ADA. Title III ensures equal access to public accommodations, and so this is where it affects my company directly. It's that it requires all new construction and modifications, which includes signage, to be accessible to individuals with disabilities. So when we speak about ADA signage, we're talking about the requirements under the ADA for signs specifically. Title IV ensures equal access to telecommunication services, and then Title V covers miscellaneous provisions. So why does it matter? It matters because prior to the ADA being signed into law, people with disabilities were largely ignored in the planning of public spaces, employment, education, and were subject to widespread discrimination and societal exclusion. So while the ADA has helped combat some of these areas, we still have a long way to go in shifting the societal views of disability, and very specifically as it pertains to intellectual and developmental disabilities. So I wanted to include this slide just to kind of show that disability impacts all of us. So the most recent stats I have are that 26% of adults living in the United States are living with some type of disability, which, equates to roughly 1 in 4 adults are living with a disability. This is a higher percentage in the South than it is the rest of the United States. So where we're located, it has an even larger impact. So this means that prior to 1990, which is in my lifetime, it's just 35 years ago, 26% of adults in the US were excluded from the communities in which they call home. So why does this matter to my company? And that is because we produce ADA signage, amongst other things. So we are held to a certain standard. We have very strict rules that we have to follow when making signage. So the ADA was signed into law in 1990, but there are what are referred to as the 2010 standards. And so this is when there was a much needed revision to the ADA. And in this, they stated that all buildings that were renovated after 2012 must become compliant. So that means any new construction after 2012 or any renovation to a building, they had to take the ADA into consideration. So they had to, you have to widen doors, you have to put in ramps, auto openers, and you also have to bring all of your signage up to standard. Um, they include this sentence at the end of it, though, that says to the maximum extent feasible. This creates a huge gray area in the ADA and really needs to be corrected with an updated standard. But that is probably a soapbox for a different presentation. So for us, there's 4 types of ADA signs. There's signs that identify a permanent space, informational signage, directional signage, and overhead signage. Without getting too deep into it, it's just any Title II facility must have signs that are compliant if they are identifying a permanent space, which is basically any room in a building. What they mainly cover is visual impairment. So there are contrast laws. They have to be like high contrast. They have to include tactile numbers or text, and they must include raised braille as well. We like to use ADA as a starting point. So instead of just meeting the minimum requirements of the ADA, we also try to push our clients to include universal design standards so that we're covering all forms of disability and not just visual impairments. So we as a company know that ADA signage is awesome. It makes spaces more accessible for people with disabilities and more navigable for everyone. But do our clients know that? Typically, no. So our job is to educate our clients on the legal requirements for signage, but also the benefits of universal design to make their spaces more comfortable and accessible for all. We also, from time to time, need to educate clients on the consequences as well of not following the ADA, which can include fines of up to $75,000 for a first offense and $150,000 for additional violations, lawsuits, personal injury claims, but very importantly, just a loss of trust from the disabled community members and damage to the reputation of the business, which can result in loss of income. There have been a lot of studies done on the economic impact of the disabled community and the negative impacts it can have if you do not make your space compliant. So what does this look like in our own house? So we use a lot of universal design techniques in our physical space. But we also try to be as inclusive as possible in our hiring practices. So for us, it all starts with hiring and posting jobs. In the past 5 years, we have tried very hard to expand our hiring practices to be as inclusive as possible and eliminate unconscious bias to the most extent that we can. We are still learning. We're a young and growing company, but I just wanted to talk about some of the things that we have personally put into practice and the effects that have had on our company. So starting with job descriptions, whenever I post a job, we do a couple things. The first thing we've done is just eliminate gendered language. So obviously that's pronouns. That's the easiest thing to do, just remove the pronouns from your job postings. But the other thing that we've done is try to do some research around gender coded language. So some examples would include like assertive, competitive, rock star, expert. So these are all like superlatives that research shows us can really turn off female candidates because they are male coded language. Um, the next thing that we did was, instead of just listing our requirements for the position, is we have switched that into must-haves. So those would be our requirements, and then like nice-to-haves or like would be a bonus. Um, so we're really trying to be very clear in what our deal breakers are. The reason we did that was some research showed that women are unlikely to apply for a position unless they meet 100% of the requirements, whereas men will apply if they meet 60% of the requirements. So, in being very clear in what the requirements are versus like what we would like to see or would be nice to have, we feel like we've really opened up that job pool a little bit more to balance the type of candidates that we're getting. The other thing that we do is include a diversity statement. So beyond just, equal employment opportunity, um, we try to give an honest representation of who we are and why diversity matters to our company and how we implement it in our day to day. This shows, I think shows our candidates that, we truly care about equity and inclusion, and that we're not just putting it on there as a statement because we have to. So the second thing that we implemented just a couple years ago was blind hiring. So when I post a job, my executive assistant will take resumes as they come in and just scrub names, names of schools, etc. Um, and so what that does is hopefully helps me get a more unbiased view of the candidate without making any assumptions on their qualifications based on identifying information such as race, gender, or like even schools that they attended. Um, if you have an HR department, I think it's a good idea to do this just to eliminate that unconscious bias. If the schools that they attended are HBCUs, it might, clue you into the fact that it's a Black candidate, and there may be someone in the department that's going to have some unconscious bias around that. So another tool that I just recently found is unbiased.io. This is a Chrome extension that will do basically the same thing on LinkedIn. So when I'm recruiting, I can activate it prior to searching for candidates. And it just goes through and hides names and pictures on LinkedIn. And I think that's basically all it does, which allows me really to focus on qualifications and alleviate, again, any of that unconscious bias. And then lastly, we've recently started using a more structured interview process. So whenever we post a job, which is typically when we're posting jobs, we're creating positions, not necessarily replacing positions. I'll sit down with my team and we'll come up with a list of questions and a rubric for the answers. So this allows us to be asking the same questions to each candidate and have like a predetermined rubric for their answers so that we can measure really everyone against the same standards. So those are just some of the basic things that we do internally when we're hiring and reviewing candidates. And then once we've retired, yeah. Sorry,
Just going to
Kim.
say those are fabulous. I'll give you a chance to take a few breaths. Would you be willing to share your diversity statement that I can send out to our attendees after this?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. I'd be happy to share
perfect.
that. Yeah.
Perfect. And thank you for sharing that unbiased IO. I had not heard of that before.
There,
And I think that's sounds like a great tool.
Yeah, and there's quite a few different ones out there. That's the one that we use just because it focuses heavily on LinkedIn, which is where we do a lot of our recruitment. But I do know that just, if quick Google, there's a lot of examples of things that will scrub resumes for you, especially with AI becoming what it is. A lot of that work can be done for you. So I imagine there's probably one that will scrub resumes for me and save my EA sometime, but I haven't actually done the research on that yet.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks. So some things that we do once we've hired to retain employees. The biggest one that we focus on is really just creating community. So for us, this includes celebrating non-traditional holidays, such as like Pride, MLK Day, Juneteenth, Hanukkah, or any other days that may be relevant to our staff, but are not widely acknowledged in a typical workforce. The other thing that we do is we have a big focus on employee engagement events. I have a small team. We have a huge client base and they work very, very hard. So it's really important for me to support them in, some team building and just taking some time to recenter as a group and a team. So we try to have at least one employee engagement event each quarter. Um, Employee engagement event is such a long, cumbersome thing to say. We are working on a better name for it, but I have not come up with one yet. So if anyone has any ideas. Um, One thing that I'm really passionate about is that this should be done during work hours. When I used to work in the corporate world, we would have a lot of employee retention events that were done after hours, and it always felt like something that you were required to do, but really you were having to give up your own personal time to do it. So we always make sure that ours are done during the workday. So from 8 to 5 is when ours happen. So some examples of these, a couple years ago, we were planning our just annual holiday party. And my team approached me with the idea that they would like to just have a day in the shop. Like they would just like to hang out, have me cater lunch, and just have access to all of the equipment and the materials that we use just to work on crafts. And so it became just basically a big party where we crafted all day, and it was one of our most successful parties. And it really kind of spawned this idea of this is something we should be doing more often. Um, we don't have to wait until the holiday season to do once a year, hang out with each other and kind of celebrate. So that is when we implemented this kind of quarterly event. Um, so an example, this month, actually next Friday, we are having a day. And what we do is we just send our phones to voicemail. Our out of office goes on so that no one is required to answer the phone or feel like they need to be accessible to clients. So our front office staff doesn't have to, um, be on like they always are. And then I bring in usually breakfast and lunch and we kind of hang out. So Friday we're doing a birdhouse competition. And this is again something that, we talk about as a team and they decide what we're going to do. And they decided that this month they want to build birdhouses and we are having a competition. We broke it off into teams and it's a design build competition. So that's pretty relevant to who we are as a company. And we're going to build birdhouses. And then some of our clients, we have 2 architects and an interior designer coming in at the end of the day to join us and hang out. They're almost friend type clients. And they are going to judge our birdhouses. I have no idea what the winning birdhouse gets. We haven't gotten that far yet, but this is our current employee engagement event. So creating community is obviously our biggest retention strategy. The next thing is advancement opportunities. So I know that there are a lot of employees that aren't comfortable approaching leadership about raises or promotions, and that may end up kind of stuck in a job where they could be more valuable to the company, and have a better quality of life. So we try to make really clear goals for each position. So each position has a clear progression route, so the employees understand kind of what the goalposts are, where they need to get to move to the next level, to get promotions, to get raises. This really eliminates the ambiguity around raises and promotions, and really takes the pressure off of my employees for having to approach me and basically give me a pitch on why they should get a promotion. And then the last one I'm going to talk about, but our most recent um, development for employee retention is unlimited PTO. So this one was a hard, kind of a hard thing to come to. And we're still working on the full rollout and implementation of it. But I felt like it was really important to kind of reduce the pressure on my workforce. I don't want people to feel like they have to come in when they're sick. I don't want anyone to have to reschedule a vacation just because their kid got the flu. There's obviously a lot of like public health benefits to that as well, where we're not working when we're sick, we're not exposing each other. But also just it's important that people are given that freedom to kind of take time to be sick and recover without worrying about losing their vacation days. The other thing we've found is that it has really increased people's mental health. We've seen a decided kind of reduction in burnout and a more engaged workforce since we've implemented this policy. It's also important for me that my employees know that they can take mental health days. You don't have to be sick. You don't have to have the flu just to not come to work. If you just need a day to reset, then I know they're going to come back stronger and we're going to help prevent burnout. Some of the other benefits of that is we've seen really increased trust and autonomy. Just being able to trust my team to get their work done has been huge. They have a better work-life balance, I think, knowing that they can take the time when they need, and that I trust them to get their work done. So, I think that that's one of the big fears of employers when you implement an unlimited PTO policy is that your employees are going to take advantage of it. We haven't seen that at all. And in fact, I've actually seen the opposite in that if someone is planning a vacation or knows that they're going to take some time off, they really work hard to make sure that they're not leaving their coworkers with a mess. So they're really kind of getting all their ducks in a row. And we also focus, I wasn't going to talk about this, but it seems relevant. We focus a lot on cross training as well. So we don't have any single position in the company that there's not at least one other person that can cover for you. So I think that that also gives my employees a little breathing room and knowing that if they need to take a day off, that they're not going to come back to just a pile of work, that there's somebody else there that can step in and help them out. So in addition to that, there is just some admin benefits as well. So there's the reduced cost of tracking PTO, which if any of you work in HR can know can be very burdensome. I know that our bookkeeper did not like tracking our PTO because we did cumulative instead of just giving 2 years. So like for every hour you worked, you got a certain amount of PTO, and it was kind of a nightmare to track. So switching from that, we've taken that workload completely off of her. And then also there's just a cost savings from a company perspective when it comes to paying out PTO. If someone is terminated or leaves, you don't, with unlimited PTO, they're not accruing, so there's no payout at the end. So that can be like a financial benefit as well. Um, so those are some of our retention policies that we've put into effect in the last 5 years. Hi,
Sarah,
Kim.
Elizabeth had some ideas for your employee engagement events
Oh,
name. She said
yes.
tree logo, branching
Hmm.
out, reaching new
Yes.
heights, time in for time out. I like that. I like all of them.
Oh,
Time in for
yes.
time out. That's cool. So
I love
uh,
it.
wanted to share that with you. She put that in the
Um,
chat.
Thank you. I am writing it down over here on the side. I love those. Thank you so much. So, what does our current workplace look like with the implementation of these hiring and retention practices? So, our staff self-identifies as LGBTQ, so 40% of our staff, 50% women, 40% men, and 10% non-binary. And then 40% of our staff also are disabled adults. I think it's also relevant to mention, I don't have a slide on this, but our turnover rate in the last year has been 0% and less than 10% for the lifetime of the company.
That's impressive.
Oh, thank you. Um, I think some of it's luck too. So our physical environments, we try to focus on having easily accessible and easily navigable spaces. Um, we let employees choose the color of their offices, their decor choices. Everybody gets to pick out their own chairs, their own desks, what color they want to paint their offices, what artwork they want to hang, which could probably look to some people when they come in as semi-chaotic, but really it's a space where we spend, sometimes upwards of 10 hours a day, and it should really be customized for you. We also have multiple lighting options. You may notice that it's a little dark in my office. That's by choice. I don't love overhead lights, and so I just have a variety of lamps around. Um, and then access to information and communication technology. So what that means for us is everyone that works in the office that doesn't actually work back in manufacturing has laptops so that they can take their work with them. Um, we will often have our meetings on Zoom. All of our data is in cloud-based environments, so it really allows people the freedom to work from home or wherever they feel most comfortable. I know there's a lot of days where I just get overwhelmed by being in the space, and I may just go to a coffee shop or to the park and work from there. We also utilize AI openly for reports, emails, etc. It is a growing market, and I don't, I feel like I want to give my employees the ability to work with it instead of trying to work against them. So I will use AI to draft reports, and they are welcome to do the same thing. So those are just like some of the things that are in our physical environment that support our employees' differences. Okay, so digging a little deeper into our staff and who we are as a company. So I mentioned earlier that I am on the board of directors for Mattingly Edge, and a division of Mattingly Edge is Edge Employment. So as a board member, the director of Edge Employment reached out to me and about collaborating with Unified. And she basically kind of told me to put my money where my mouth was, that where I'm a disability advocate, we do all of this ADA signage and universal design, but we did not have anybody with a profound disability working at Unified. So Mary Reed, who I think is on the call, And I apologize because this slide got a little jumbled, Mary Reed. I'm so sorry. Um, Mary Reed is the director of Edge Employment. Edge Employment represents job candidates with disabilities to connect with community businesses who could benefit from their skills. So they help employers fill existing positions through supported employment and create new positions that match a job candidate's most valuable contributions to the most pressing needs of the business. So they have also recently started working with high schoolers with disabilities to explore careers and post-secondary education through an initiative called Life Launch, which is super awesome. And we can send some links out about that if anybody's interested. Um, so Edge employment services are provided at no cost to the job candidates or the employers. It's all funded through the Office of Vocational Rehab, or sorry, Vocational Rehabilitation. So what it looks like is an Edge employment specialist will come in and stay on site until a job candidate is independent in their tasks, unless it's requested otherwise by the employee with a disability or by their employer. Additionally, specialists are available to support both the employee with a disability and their employer for the duration of the employee's career, especially when it comes to additional training or troubleshooting. So if anybody wanted to host an Edge employment specialist, it is important to know that it is free of charge and there is no obligation to hire. So just a little bit about what that looked like for us. Mary Reed came in to just shadow us to see, what kind of tasks we do every day that could be a good fit and just learn more about our company. So as she did that, she observed what we do on a daily basis, and she almost immediately identified tasks that could be compartmentalized into a new position. So after they shadowed, they approached me with the idea of interviewing Jean for a position, for this like newly created position. And it was pretty clear after meeting her that she was going to be just a really great fit and a huge asset to our team. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Jean, who she is, how she came to us. So Jean is just a highly skilled craftsperson who enjoys crocheting, embroidery, sewing. She is also an adult that's living with an intellectual disability, and she uses mobility aids. But importantly, she is a very dedicated employee. She has an incredibly infectiously positive attitude, and she's a hugely important member of our team. She works 1 day a week for 4 hours, which is her preferred schedule. And she is a very productive member of our team. So I asked Mary Reed just to give us a statement about Jean and how she came to be came to be an employee at Unified. And so that's the statement. And she said, Jean worked with an Edge employment specialist named Mary Reed to determine her contributions, interests, and conditions for success in the workplace. And Mary Reed learned off the bat that Jean's hands are always moving, finishing one project or another. Jean is a knitter, embroiderer, crocheter, jewelry maker, and crafter. For 20 years, she's worked in a congregated setting, doing small assembly and cleaning work for a sub-minimum wage. But Mary Reed saw far greater potential for Jean. When Mary Reed saw some of the recurring tasks happening at Unified Sign and Design, especially tasks that were repetitive, time-consuming tasks, that pulled employees away from creative projects and created backups or bottlenecks, she knew that Jean would be a great addition to their team. We are so thankful that Mary Reed saw that, made that connection for us, because even as a disability advocate, I had some unconscious bias that I like, it's called that for a reason, right? I was not aware of it. And I didn't see how um, an adult with an intellectual disability could really fit into our work environment. Like we use the giant like CNC machines and laser cutters, and I wasn't really sure what that looked like. So having the Edge Employment team come in and shadow us and be able to identify for me these like repeatable tasks that um, that I had machine operators and things doing, and say these could easily be pulled into a new position that we could fill, was really eye-opening for me. And then I think that not always they're going to have, at least my understanding was that not always they were going to have someone right off the bat that would be a good fit, but that they just kind of create these job profiles in case they onboard someone to Edge Employment that would eventually fit. Um, for us, we got lucky that Jean was looking for a job and that she just happened to have the skill set that we needed and really became a perfect fit for us. So the impact that this has had on the company is that it has freed up my creative team from some of the more repetitive tasks, like putting tape on the back of signs, collating booklets, things like that, that Jean has just taken off of their plate. So it's freed up my creative team to focus on running their equipment, doing like the finishing touches on things, really like focusing in on their jobs. Um, we also have been able to give Jean a meaningful job where she is a valued member of the team. I think a lot of times that disabled adults, especially adults with intellectual disabilities, are just kind of pigeonholed into jobs that you've all seen. They're a greeter at Walmart, or they're working in like a day center. So this is actually, a place where Jean can use her specific skill set, and she is a valued member of the company. And then I think the last thing that I've noticed is it's really impacted not just my view of people with disabilities, but a lot of my employees who may not be encountering disabled adults as often as someone like me who's a disability advocate would. Um, and it's really changed their views around disability, specifically regarding biases on the value of their work and societal contributions. And so on a personal level, that has been the most impactful thing for me to see, is how it's just changed um, my team's views personally around disabled adults. Um, but I had my production manager just put together like a quick impact video so that you could hear from some of my employees themselves about what that looks like. So I will play that now.
It doesn't sound like the audio is coming through.
It's not okay. And I am not entirely sure that I'm tech savvy enough to figure that out. Um,
Mary Reed said you have to unshare, then reshare with audio. I don't know if
mhm. Okay, so stop
we can,
sharing.
and we can also, this is going to go out to everybody
Yeah.
in the slide deck. So they'll have it available to them as well.
Um, let me try Mary Reed's suggestion and see if that worked. And if
Sure.
not, I can.
Hey, I'm Jesse. I'm the production
There it
manager
is.
at Unified Sign. When we hired Jean on, it really alleviated a lot of stress for us. We're a small team of 9 people, And we produce everything from huge monument signs to dimensional letters with LED lighting, isolation books, every kind of sign that you could imagine, and even sculptural objects. And since Jean has been here, she's taken on tasks that alleviate a lot of our time and allow us to focus on design and presentation. And there's just not enough hours in the day for our small team. So the work she has contributed has been significant, and we're really happy to have her here.
Ever since Jean started, our production just runs smoother and so much faster. Knowing that we can rely on her for the kind of comprehensive and time-consuming assembly that can really eat up a day just makes a fantastic difference in our operations. She's a joy to be around. I mean, she always has a great attitude and a smile on her face, and honestly, we are just lucky to have her on our team.
I'm Gina. I'm the CNC operator and laser operator here at Unified. Part of what I do is cut these pages that are made for what we call isolation books. They're what nurses use in front of a patient's room, and they have different indicators. So we start out with a bunch of pages, and Jean has been a real big help helping us collate these and putting them into some sense, and then we can assemble them into the books here. She also does things like helps us tape. These are going to be made into some other types of signs. Same like this. Things that we don't have to spend a lot of our time because Gina's taking care of it for us, so we can focus more on running our machines and just being more productive in general with some other tasks. So she's been great help.
Okay, so I quit sharing my screen, sorry.
No worries. That was a great video. Thank you. I'm glad we were able to get the audio going too. Lisa did ask, how many employees do you have in your company to implement the suggestions of retention that you had?
How many employees do I currently have in my company? Is that the gist of the question? Sorry.
Yeah, to implement the retention suggestions.
Yeah. So we currently have 10 full-time employees, 2 part-time employees, and then just a series of subcontractors that we work with. But for the sake of our employee retention policies, that is 10 full-time employees that we implement those policies with.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I don't see any other questions, but I so appreciate you spending time with us today and sharing an employer perspective on inclusivity. And it was especially meaningful coming from an employer who helps promote inclusivity in other employers, organizations. So thank you so much, Sarah. And
Yeah,
as I
thank
mentioned,
you.
yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we'll go ahead and we'll send a slide deck out with their certificate of attendance in the next few days. And we just really appreciate you sharing all the great things that you're doing at Unified Sign and Design. So thank you so
Awesome.
much.